Nighttime in Texas. It was approaching midnight when the cab dropped Dave off at the house. He had arrived at the San Antonio airport in Texas a few hours earlier and spoken with Carlos, his host, while the plane was still on the runway. It's the one with gardenias outside and the silver scooter parked in the driveway. Carlos told him about the house, adding that he'd be inside watching the HBO series The Wire. I'm addicted to that show, he said. Sometimes I stay up all night and watch 8 or 9 episodes in a row. But as Dave approached the house on foot, none of the lights seemed to be on. The street was dark, as if the police had imposed a strict curfew. A black pit bull in the yard next door eyed him suspiciously as he walked to the front door. Dave rang the bell. No answer. He rang again, this time waiting a full 30 seconds. Nothing. Carlos? He called, his voice echoing in the empty alley beside the house. Dave walked around the house, making fruitless attempts to enter through the doors and windows. He pulled out his iPhone and double-checked the address. Carlos had spelled it out for him in a text message and an email. 154 South Pine Drive, San Antonio, Texas. He could smell the gardenias planted by the side of the entryway. In the driveway, the silver scooter glinted in the orange glow of the streetlight. This was the place, all right. But where was his high school friend with whom he'd traveled all the way from Maine to visit for a spring break? He called Carlos and left a message on his voicemail. Hey dude, Dave said, it's me. I'm outside your house right now and I can't figure out where you are. I thought you'd be watching TV, hoping you didn't forget about me. As Dave spoke, a police car drifted by, slowing noticeably as it passed. It was too dark to see through the windows, but it appeared as if the cop was watching him. Dave was officially perplexed. Carlos had always been an extremely responsible guy, much more so than Dave, whose friends often referred to him as Space Cadet. In high school, when the two of them played on the travel soccer team together, Carlos always brought an extra pair of socks and shin guards in the likely event that Dave would leave one or the other or both behind. Whereas Dave dressed sloppily, as if he just rolled out of bed. Carlos always dressed in crisply ironed button-downs and jeans. As a teenager, he was always reading thick novels and talking about the characters as if they were people he knew in real life. Carlos, in other words, was not the absent-minded type, let alone the kind of guy who forgets his best friend is about to arrive at his house. And yet, by all appearances, this is what had happened. He must have zipped out for a soda at the mobile station or something, Dave thought, giving his pal the benefit of the doubt. True, it was odd to have done such a thing at midnight, he reasoned, but sometimes you just need a Slim Jim and a Mountain Dew. Dave understood the urge. He sat down atop his suitcase and waited. 15 minutes went by, then 30, then 45. The pit bull in the yard next door did not stop staring at him the entire time, but while it had irked him at first, Dave found himself amazed at the dog's capacity to concentrate. At a time when Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram were overtaking human beings' attention spans, he thought, dogs had not lost their ability to focus. Or not this dog, at least. Another 15 minutes passed. Dave was seriously considering falling asleep on the doorstep when he saw a woman approach the sidewalk. She appeared to be in her late 20s, and she wore a bathrobe and a pair of fuzzy pink slippers. Noticing Dave half asleep on the steps, she walked towards him. Startled, Dave bolted upright. This night is about to get even weirder, he thought. How are you? The woman called in a thick Texas accent as she made her way across the wet grass. Fine, just waiting for my friend here, Dave said. Carlos, right? She said, stopping 10 feet in front of him. She fixed him with a neighborly smile, which seemed out of place on this dark and desolate block. That's right, he said. How do you know him? Oh, he's an old friend, Dave said, or at least I thought he was. He let out an exhausted laugh. I just flew in from Maine. He was supposed to meet me here about 2 hours ago, but I can't seem to figure out where he is, and the house is locked up tight. Well, Carlos has been acting a bit strange lately, the woman said, In fact, over the last few months, this whole neighborhood has been acting weird. Dave shifted uncomfortably on his suitcase. What do you mean, the whole neighborhood? He asked. Well, the woman said, casting a sidelong glance at the extra attentive pit bull next door. There seems to be something going around, a kind of sickness, a night sickness, I guess you'd call it. Night sickness, Dave said. Mm-hmm, the woman said, raising her eyebrow. I'm Patricia, by the way. The two of them shook hands. As Dave listened raptly, Patricia explained the recent spate of strange events. A few months before, she noticed one of her neighbors, a kindly retired dentist named Hans, walked past her bedroom around at 3 o'clock in the morning. Patricia was rightly spooked. She leapt out of bed and ran outside to see what was going on. She found Hans removing Coke cans from her recycling bin. Hearing her approach, he turned to look at her with a blank stare. He was clearly sleepwalking, Patricia explained. She added that her father was a sleepwalker, so she recognized the symptoms. To wake him from his slumber, she drew near him and clapped loudly several times. Poor Hans suddenly came to his senses and gazed at her with a bewildered look. Patricia gently led him back to his house. In the ensuing weeks, however, Patricia began to notice more neighbors walking slowly down the sidewalk in the middle of the night. It started to look like that video of Michael Jackson's song Thriller, she said with a laugh, like a bunch of zombies walking down the street. No one knew what to make of it. The police were fielding dozens of calls per night. The reports were widely varied, but consistently in that they all occurred at night. A strange man is pretending to hit golf balls in my backyard. There's a woman in hair curlers pruning my hedges in the front yard. A local doctor had determined that all of the intruders in question had been sleepwalking, but try as he might, he could not figure out the cause. Mass sleepwalking, he told the local newspapers, is not a diagnosable condition. To prevent injury, the city police had issued a strict curfew of 11 o'clock. They also instructed all residents to bar their doors at night to prevent themselves and others from opening them in a sleepwalking state. Pretty weird, right? Patricia said. Dave took a moment to form a response. Yeah, he finally managed. I mean, that's really crazy. I've never heard of anything like that. After a pause, he continued, so do you think do you think he's one of the afflicted? Just then, Patricia said, I wouldn't doubt it for a second. In fact, I was just coming over to check on him. Just then, the two of them wheeled around at a sound of a car skidding into the driveway. Dave recognized the beaten-up 1996 Jeep Cherokee. Carlos sprang out of the driver's side door. Dave, he shouted, dude, I'm so sorry. He ran across the grass to greet the two of them. I got a flat tire on my way to the 7-Eleven, and I had to hitch a ride to the nearest gas station. Took forever. My phone died just when I was leaving the house. Carlos clapped Dave on the shoulder. Dave uttered an unintelligible sound. I see you've met Patricia, Carlos said, kissing her on the cheek. She's the girl I've been telling you about. We're totally in love. As Patricia rolled her eyes, Dave stared at her, trying to discern whether she'd been lying. So that stuff about the sleepwalking, was that true? Oh yeah, Carlos said, shaking his head. Whole city seems to be coming down with it. He paused. You're not scared of the dark, are you? Number 5. Part A. How does the development of the plot in Flying Bird compare to the development of the plot in Nighttime in Texas? Both plots begin with an exposition that describes the protagonist and the antagonist. B. Both plots end with a conclusion that leaves the reader full of suspense. C. Both plots have a climax related to a natural disaster. D. Both plots have a climax that related to a strange phenomenon. Number 6. Part B. Which sentence from Flying Bird best supports your answer in Part A? Choose one answer. A. The red phone rings at 22:04 hours. State Trooper Ed Korzinski blinks and rubs his eyes. B. He was watching this beautiful night turn to soup. One low bank of clouds moved in from Indianapolis. C. Between his fake Southern accent and his arrogance with a helicopter, Dahmer was a perfect hire for the guys who own Air Medical, whom Korzinski secretly considers a couple of half-wit cowboys. D. This is Dayton Tower. Please be advised that all air traffic is suspended until further directions. Answer the remaining 2 questions for the passage Nighttime in Texas. 7. What are the most likely reasons the author included the character Patricia in the passage? Select 2 answers. A. To contribute to a mood of mystery. B. To be the antagonist in the story. C. To build suspense during the climax of the story. D. To be the protagonist in the story. E. To contribute to a mood of nostalgia. Number 8. Read the paragraph. Whereas Dave dressed sloppily as if he'd just rolled out of bed, Carlos always dressed in crisply ironed button-downs and jeans. As a teenager, he was always reading thick novels and talking about the characters as if they were people he knew in real life. What does the underlined phrase suggest about Carlos? A. Carlos' absence was out of character for him. B. It was typical of Carlos to be forgetful. C. Carlos was always prone to oversleeping. D. Carlos was young and it was concerning that he was out so late.